Hello, investors. It's Connor Bates, Associate Portfolio Manager with Revere Asset Management. Today is Thursday, May 29th, 4:46 p.m. Eastern Time, coming to you from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, with tonight's Revere Roundup Daily Market Insight video. Market state, we're still in an uptrend since those subsequent fall through days. And if we take a look, trend gauge over here, market leader still green arrow. Some leaders pulled back today, and you can see 21 over 21 list was down 1.34%, but a lot still held the 8, the 21. So, some profit taking a little bit today, but overall still healthy. If they start to break the 21 and the 50-day, then clearly our tone would change. But for now, nothing wrong there. Short term, we're still above that 21 EMA and the power trend stays alive. Medium term, we are above the 50-day moving average, starting to slope back up as well. And then long term, trading above the 200-day moving average. Want to see that start slope back up a little more and then just get that more positive moving average alignment where you have the 8 above the 21, 21 above the 50, and the 50 above the 200-day sloping up. So what happened today? So we initially gapped up overnight. At one point last night, we were up like 1.5% on the NASDAQ. And that was on some news hit the wire that the U.S. Court of International Trade struck down on Trump's illegal tariff scheme and they called it invalid. And they basically said that the president does not have authority to implement tariffs unilaterally. And then, so that's kind of what sparked the gap. Try to block it, and then the White House says Supreme Court must put an end to this, and then the Washington federal judge pauses tariff orders for 14 days. So quite a lot of news coming out today, and like I mentioned, we are opening up hitting highs overnight up around 1.5, 1.7, opened up around 0.7%. And then it was some selling off the open and a little bit of a volatile day, but still closed the day green. So final numbers 21 over 21 list down 1.34%, 5 green, 16 red. Big 8 up 0.27%, RG8 down 0.15%, S&P 500 up 0.4, RSP up 0.24, QQQ up 0.2, Equal Weight down 0.21, Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.25, mid caps up 0.28, Russell 2000 up 0.3, 60/40 stock and bond up 0.32%, GROTECTION down 0.45%, TurboTection down 1.05%. All right, let's get into the interasset correlation. So, yeah, so objectively, this chart still looks good. Kind of that scenario that we've been talking about is after this big move up off the lows, for some years, this move from 48.35 all the way up into at the highs, almost 6,000. Sometimes the S&P doesn't even do that in a year, so that's a big move. But what we're seeing is we're starting to build a flag here, building a range here above all the averages. And I'll just pull up a 5 minute so you can see is, we were gapping up big, looking really good. And then for some selling. This was big, some harsh selling into the afternoon, kind of try to rally back up and close mid-range. And if we look at 60 minute, again, nothing looks wrong. Pretty normal action, but some mild intraday volatility. And then leaders were a bit more volatile today. RSP looks pretty good. This one again is building a flag here. This, maybe chops around in this range a little bit more, but again, certainly looking bullish. The Qs as well. I'll pull up an intraday chart and you can see gapped up, faded for the first, half of the day, tried to rally and then just closed mid-range. And still looks constructive. Mag 7, constructive, obviously an outside reversal day, but again, just in these kind of trading in this new trade range. Dow Jones trying to build under the 200-day moving average. Maybe this can break out. Mid caps, good action. Again, very similar to the S&P, just below the 200-day moving average. Kind of starting to form a flag here, starting to get a little bit more tight. Russell 2000 as well. This is also starting to form some tightness here in this flag. Maybe it can break out. Arc forming a handle here out of this cup. FFTY, this is good representation of leaders, closed down 1.23% today. Gap up reversal, closed low day. The VIX closed down as well, 19.18, down just under 1%. Dollar outside reversal against this 100 spot, gapped up, closed low of the day. Gold. So we've been talking about this for a little bit. If the market pulls back, this tends to be a good hedge. If the market, continues higher, this probably breaks down. But not this really could go either way. From the bear side, you're putting in another lower high. From the bull side, building higher lows. Found support at the 50-day moving average and coming against this downtrend. But gold should be interesting to see how it reacts into the end of the week and next. It's been a good tell for the general market as well. Gold stocks, same look there as gold. Silver, big range. Maybe this plays catch up, but again, if this is going to move higher, it likely means that gold's going to be moving higher as well. Bitcoin, this one failed at these highs and pulling back. So now to watch, is this going to handle out? Is this going to respect the 21 or is this taking a trip to the 50-day? Everything, you always have risks to the 50-day. You don't know when or if or how long it can go without touching it, but eventually every stock asset will come back to the 50-day moving average. And Bitcoin is currently, let's see, Bitcoin is 13.5% above the 50-day, but this one closed back below the 8, but again, looks totally normal. Just had a big move up, coming back into the base. So maybe this handles out, touches the 21. Bonds, nice strength here. Yields were down today. TLT again up almost 1%. There was a good bond auction today. It was what? Let's see, 1 second. Well, I believe it was the 7-year bond auction today, and it went pretty well. And that's when yields started coming lower. You can see here, and that coincided with bonds getting a bounce as well. All right, that's the interasset correlation. Let's get into the tale of the tape. So, some notable items. So we got some new sentiment indicators today. AAII bears dropped down or bulls dropped down to 32.9 and bears tick back up to 41.9. So bears are back overpowering the bulls for that reading right now. And then the NAM exposure index that jumped quite a bit, 8 points back up to 88. And we talked about this before, but it's a good indicator. We follow it because when it gets overheated, sometimes the question is who's left to buy. And typically the market tends to see turning points when that gets into that 100 area. But so 88, a little bit high, but can go higher. Today's keys, we're watching S&P versus the 200-day held. That 5,800 support continues to hold. Next level is that 6,000 resistance. The Qs held the 200-day, that 500 support, and then that next resistance point at 525. And then going into Friday, watching the same stuff, and we're watching the leaders as well, which we highlight in every night in the video with the 21 over 21 list. Day count, treating this as a day two of a consolidation. We're kind of starting to form a flag here. 3 days back above the 8 EMA, that's a good sign. And we've been above the 21 EMA for 25 days now. So that's good to see as well. Sectors wise, with yields coming down, biotech got a bid today. Been a big relative underperformer for some time though. Gold up slightly, semiconductors up on the heels of Nvidia earnings, although quite a few of them faded. Nvidia held up pretty well, but didn't close up huge or anything. XLRE as well with yields coming down, and then tech, and then weakness wise, uranium. After that catalyst last week, some of these names are getting a well-deserved rest, especially CCJ, Cameco. That's one of the leaders. That one's pulling back. XRT, retail, software, cyber, and Bitcoin all pulling back as well. But again, no glaring red flags from the action today, just some general profit taking and pullbacks. GROTECTION today added to Nvidia after hours yesterday on the earnings report. Sold Uber on the break of the 21 and then trimmed Ibit and Netflix. RVAB 1.44, balance at risk 4.53%. TurboTaxion today trimmed Uber and also trimmed GEV. So still holding those, but just sold some of that. So 1.47 beta, 4.02% open heat. Bottom line, overnight gap met with some sellers plus leaders pulling back, but nothing out of the blue, nothing really bad. All right, let's get into some charts of interest. And we'll start with the trades, GROTECTION. Let's take a look at NVIDIA. So NVIDIA closed the day up 3.25%, and not bad, clearing this flag. Good earnings, and Nvidia tends to never disappoint, but again, it's always the reaction, not so the numbers. And is it priced in? Is the run up from here already factored in those earnings? But again, as long as this holds this range, the 8, the 21, the 200 day, maybe this needs some more time, or this shoots back up into those highs. But this pulling intraday, just similar action to the market today, gapped up at the market and then pulled back in. But overall looks good. And if we take one thing that was a bit concerning for the sector was some of the big reversals in names. ARM was gapping up overnight and then closed down 5.5% back below the 200 day. Avgo, this one held up well. This one didn't pull back. This one's continuing higher out of the flag. This one reports earnings next week. VRT was an Nvidia sympathy play as well. This one was gapping up overnight and then closed the day down just under 1%. And then, some other semis that just don't look great, Marvell, MU, some other data center related names, NBIS, big outside reversal down almost 4%. So definitely the group didn't really act too well today, but when we look at Nvidia, it still looks fine. So that was Nvidia. Sold Uber. Harsh big break of the 21 on volume today, fouled breakout, and just the competition with Tesla, any news event that comes out, I talked about it yesterday, tends to turn Uber the wrong way. So harsh break of the 21, see if it can hold the 50-day if it gets there. Trimmed IBIT, break closing back below the 8 EMA, and then also trim Netflix closing back below the 8 EMA. See what it does if it comes into that 21 day. Then TurboTaxion, trimmed Uber as well. Have a smaller position from lower back here that's getting trailed with the 50 day, so still own that. Just took some off, and then GEV did the offensive trim on this one. This is like getting quite extended on the open. This was another one that gapped up, was over 500 on Nvidia earnings, closed the day down 2.85%. But at the highs today was over 30% extended from the 50 day. So took a offensive trim in that one today. If this one starts to pull back and handle, would look to add to this one again. All right, that's trades. Let's take a look at the 21 over 21 list. Boeing had quite a day today. This one was up 3.32% on the day with really nice volume, 73% above average volume today. And yeah, and the news was you can see some news hit, sparked the move. And the news was CEO was speaking at the Bernstein conference, and they're talking about some China deliveries to China restarting in June. So the market like that, but this chart looks great. Price action's been clean, linear, and this one got huge volume breakout today. So see if this one can continue. Nvidia talked about it. Chewy, this one just tight consolidation up at the highs. Tesla closed the day up 0.43% and doing nothing wrong. Just consolidating after this big move. Toast kind of starting to flag here. Got the 21 day catching up to price. Carvana continuing higher out of this flag. EQT, we've talked about this before, and one thing to know about this is this really lacks relative strength. And these commodities, natural gas, uranium, these can be tougher trades than growth stocks, especially if you're in a risk-on environment. These tend to just be an opportunity cost holding something like this. But look at this relative strength line. It's just gone sideways. The chart setup's there. It's a nice base. And, the power needs for data centers, the N is there, but this would need to break out with some volume and start showing some relative strength to be more interested. Zscaler starting to pull back. Maybe this provides a pullback opportunity NRG. Good action from the earnings gap, just consolidating, forming a flag. Palantir, getting super tight, one, two, like 6 days tight, just above the 21. And now this is only 16% above the 50-day. Up here, is 34%. So working off some of those overbought conditions. This is on the top of the list still. I'm watching that 125.41 pivot. Want to see that 21-day hold, and this can break out. I'll take a look at the hourly, and you can see just super tight action, has a really clean downtrend line. So if this can break out, this might get back into gear. And obviously, the relative strength line's been going sideways, but this was one of the leaders off the market low, and now it's just been digesting that move. Bitcoin covered that. Bros kind of forming this handle here looks good. APP outside reversal off this 400 spot. It's not the nicest daily candle close for that one. Hims, again, kind of similar to Palantir's, got, 5 days tight on the 21. The 8 has been the ceiling for now, but some of these overbought conditions are getting worked off. And so this could be providing an add point. This can start to turn back up. Still good story, good price action, and similar to Palantir, this one just led re like crushed the S&P, and then now it's just consolidating while other names work. Hood closed right at the 8 EMA, rejected the 66.91 highs. So maybe they take it out, or maybe this one just needs to handle out a little bit, let that 21-day catch up. Netflix closing back below the 8, but again, looks totally normal. Duolingo closing back below the 8 as well, but still looks normal. Some of these names are little bit extended, so seeing them digest, cool off is totally normal. GE Vernova covered that. Spotify closed right at the 21. This one's been quite lackluster. This relative strength line has just been sideways for since it put it highs here in February of this year. Look at the relative strength line, just gone nowhere. Good chart, good setup, good fundamentals, but just not really outperforming. So just keeping that on close watch. And then Uber, harsh break of the 21. CoreWeave, this one's pulling back quite hard. This closed the day down 9% and on volume. So this could potentially be a short-term blow off top. This name was extremely extended, but if this one can handle out, pull back, this could be, a pullback opportunity. But I think everyone was waiting for this thing to pull back, and it finally did today. So we'll see if this, these new IPOs, recent issues can be extremely volatile. And given how big of an ATR this one has, there's no saying this couldn't be down to 80 tomorrow or next week. These are and super volatile stocks. I mean, it just went from 40 to almost $130 and now pulling back quite hard. So still going to be on our radar. And it's even after today's 9% dump, it's still almost 30% above the 21. So could say it's still a little bit extended. But, with that 21 over 21 list, you can kind of see how some of the leaders pulled back today. But when you look at the index, the chart still looks quite good. Really looks like nothing wrong happened whatsoever. But again, that's the nature of growth stocks. They have a higher ATRs, they move faster. So if the market's down 1%, they could be down 4 or 5%. But especially with this big overnight gap, sometimes they fill, and chasing a big overnight gap is not the right way to go. But for now, going into tomorrow, the market looks pretty healthy. We have a big PCE report tomorrow morning, so keep an eye on that and the reaction the market has. But I think that is everything I got for you guys today. That is going to wrap it. As always, love to hear from you. You can email me at connor@revereasset.com or reach out to me on X at ConnorJBates_. Phone is 855 Real Wealth, 855-732-5932. And if you're ever interested in becoming a client, as always, please reach out. That is going to wrap it. Thank you guys for watching, and always likes, comments, subscribes. We appreciate all of that. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.